Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary alongside Anthony Rivardo for another episode of Big Apple Blitz. Anthony, how are you today, my friend?
Doing great. It's been an interesting week for the New York Giants. They lost arguably their best player due to injury, at least one of them, and we have a crucial matchup with the Eagles forthcoming. And then on the Jets side of things, really big week. A lot of breaking news to talk about, so this should be a fun one.
Absolutely. So figured we'd start with the Jets first. We'll do the Davante Adams trade reaction. I'm sure if you're a Jet fan watching this, you've seen my videos and my reaction to it, but haven't got to talk about it on the Big Apple Blitz channel yet. I'm excited about this. We knew that it was coming, and it didn't. Let's be honest, it didn't hit the same at 2-4 than it probably would have at 3-3 and tied for their or. Technically, I guess with the head-to-head, you'd be at the top of the division. That would have felt a lot nicer, but like this is going to help the Jets offensively, and they're coming off a game where I thought Todd Downing did a really nice job calling plays. They left points on the board because of missed kicks, and they had a touchdown taken away because of a penalty. And like the self-inflicted wounds are obviously still a problem, and Davante Adams himself doesn't necessarily fix that. But at the end of the day, like the Jets, for better or worse, are going for it this year, and they're trying to end this 14-year playoff drought, and Davante Adams makes them better. They restructured his deal so they could still fit another player in here theoretically. Like if they ever get something done with Hassan Reddick, then that fixes the defensive line issue that they have right now. But overall, my reaction to it was I'm excited. I think he and Rodgers are going to have the connection right away. This isn't something that I think is going to take multiple weeks to figure out. I compared it to riding a bicycle. It's not something you forget. You kind of just get back in action here and get it rolling. So what was your takeaway to the Jets actually making this trade?
I thought it was a good deal, good value deal. I think it's a third that could be a second. So that feels like great value for a player of Davante Adams' caliber. Even though he's not in his prime anymore, he's not the player that he once was. He's still capable of being a 1,000-yard plus receiver and a really good playmaker on every single down. Plus, that he has the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. This is where he wants to be, and this is where Rodgers wanted him. So it makes sense. It's a perfect marriage. And while it doesn't fix all of the problems of the New York Jets and instantly make them postseason contenders once again, it at least gives them some hope that they can spark a season comeback and revitalize this team and maybe make a run. So I like the deal. Again, thought it was really good value. Think that it does a lot for the offense. I'm curious to see what the trickle-down effect is on the rest of the receiver core, how it affects Garrett Wilson's target share, Allen Lazard, and if it means anything for Mike Williams potentially getting traded, which sounds like that could happen as well. So I'm curious to see what the fallout of this deal is, but overall feeling pretty positive about it.
Yeah, it seems like Mike Williams is on his way out, which is a little unfortunate. The Jets signed him to a 1-year deal, and I was hoping that he would be, this team's number 2 wide receiver with Garrett Wilson. But even if that's the case, like in a perfect world, would I rather just keep Mike Williams for the depth and then you're not one injury away from having to start Xavier Gibson? Yes, I would much rather do that. But if the trade-off is you could get Davante Adams, but you're going to have to move Mike Williams, I'm doing that every time because I think Davante Adams, even this year, has produced more than what Mike Williams had. And Williams made a really tough mistake on the biggest play of the game. And maybe it's unfair to just focus on that one play, but it was a big reason why they lost. Not the only reason, but it was a huge play in the game, and it didn't go well. You mentioned the target share. I think Davante is going to come in here and get a big chunk of the targets, but that doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that like Garrett Wilson's just going to be this forgotten guy. I mean, there's a game against Minnesota where Garrett Wilson was targeted 23 times, and like that's just not sustainable. He's been the most targeted wide receiver in the NFL through the first 6 weeks. So I think it just kind of splits things up and makes this passing attack a little bit more diverse. I know, Lazard has a ton of touchdowns and he's been kind of up and down so far this year. But I think even if he's not in his prime anymore, Davante is still an elite route runner. And I think this is great for Garrett to kind of just learn from. This guy's been a pro and, an all pro 3 times, has worked well with Adams. Adams has worked well with Aaron Rodgers. If I'm Garrett Wilson, I'm just stapling myself to his hip pocket and just trying to eat up as much knowledge as possible.
Yeah, and I think that would be great. Just kind of getting that mentorship and allowing Garrett Wilson to learn from one of the best, because Garrett Wilson right now is a rising star and turning into one of the best route runners in the NFL. And then playing alongside Davante Adams, learning what he can from him, being a sponge and soaking up all of that experience is only going to serve to make him better. For the Mike Williams thing, though, I want to give my 2 cents. First of all, super upset that he didn't end up catching that deep pass, because I would have won my parlay, and he a single reception, so I didn't win my parlay. But on top of that, I thought that play was just weird because Mike Williams seemed out of it the whole game. He seemed like he struggled to get involved. He seemed like he wasn't making much of an impact, and that's been the case so far this season for him. He hasn't looked like the player that he was expected to be, but at the same time, I struggle to put full blame on that play on Mike Williams. I think that's just one of those things where Rodgers is expecting the receiver to know exactly what he wants to do with the football, and it's really hard to project those things. So it kind of ties into the larger conversation that we've had over the last few weeks with all of these timing routes and back shoulder fades and these chance balls that this offense is being built on. We know that Hackett had a lot to do with that. That's obvious now that we saw a different play caller change things up, and it wasn't so reliant on those back shoulders and chance balls. But there's still an element of Aaron Rodgers' attack. That's part of his passing arsenal. And I think, again, like I said recently, the Jets are living and dying by that, those chance balls from Aaron Rodgers. And that felt like one of those plays where you didn't have to throw the chance ball. I think Brees Hall was open in the flat. I think it was Brees, maybe it was somebody else, but there was somebody open in the flat. And Rodgers is usually able to be the hero when he tries to play hero ball, but this just felt like one of those moments where he tried to throw a chance ball, tried to be the hero, and it didn't work out. So Mike Williams receiving a lot of the flag. I don't think all of it's necessarily warranted. He slipped, he made a mistake. Yes, but at the same time, in that situation, is that the best throw to make? I think that's also open to debate. And I think while we can criticize a lot going on with this Jets team, I know it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's kind of tough because he is the star and he has been playing very well, especially for a player coming off of a devastating injury at his age. He gets all the credit in the world, but he also does deserve at least some of the blame, in my opinion.
No, that's fair. I don't think Rodgers is blame free in the Jets 3-game losing streak. I get what you're saying on Brees Hall. I think the down and distance played a little factor. It was 3rd and 16 on the play. A check down. There's a chance that Brees Hall just runs the 16 yards or makes it a 4th and manageable for them. They weren't kicking the field goal because Greg Zuerlein was horrific in this game, and the Jets might have a real kicking problem here. They worked out a few guys yesterday, but no move imminent at this point. And just speaking on, Rodgers in this game, I thought he played really good football. I know he had the interception at the end, but he was decisive. He was getting the ball out quickly, and it was working. And I just can't stress enough how welcome the changes were on the offensive side of the ball. And even though they lost, and I don't want to take moral victories in a year where that's not supposed to be the case. Like, you're supposed to be winning football games, but I thought there were a lot of positive signs, especially the motion usage. They ran motion on over 70% of the plays, which was 7th in the NFL this past week. In weeks 1 through 5 with Nate Hackett, it was 46%, which was like 30th or 31st. So that alone was enough for me. And also getting Brees Hall going finally, I thought was really nice. He had 170, all-purpose yards in this game. Really productive outing for him. So some positive signs building, for the Jets right now. And obviously very excited about Davante Adams, but that might be a good segue into this game that they have coming up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 4-2. Honestly, I'm pretty shocked, Anthony, that they're making the quarterback switch, that Russell Wilson's going to start this game after Justin Fields has started 4-2. Now, I don't think Justin Fields has been amazing, but he has 10 touchdowns in the 6 games here, five passing and 5 rushing. I'd be a little bit more nervous about going against Fields with the Jets' inability to stop the run than I am with Russell Wilson, who at this point in his career is much more of a pocket passer.
Is it 100% confirmed and official that Russell Wilson is going to be starting?
I don't know if they came out and said that, but he has taken all the first team reps in practice this week.
To be honest, I think that's kind of ridiculous from the standpoint of the Steelers. I think that Justin Fields, like you just said, no, he hasn't been excellent, hasn't been perfect, but he has that team at 4-2. And I don't think he's terribly limited. I don't think he's severely holding back the offense. I mean, obviously they'd like to maximize some more of their playmakers like George Pickens, sure, but I don't know if putting Russell Wilson in the lineup necessarily does that for the Steelers anyway. I think that Justin Fields has helped make that offense very dynamic. I don't think you get that Najee Harris rushing performance last week without Justin Fields being in the backfield alongside him. I think that's something to keep note of. But whatever, from the Jets standpoint, I think this is welcome news. Honestly, this team has been winning with Justin Fields. This team has looked good with Justin Fields. It hasn't been perfect, but the offense has found ways to move the rock and get into the end zone along with their stifling defense. So from a Jets perspective, I'm welcoming this. I think that I think that Russell Wilson could step into this lineup and it could look completely different and not necessarily for the better. So for a Jets team that kind of needs a bounce back game with their defense, and for a Steelers team that's hoping to improve the record to 5-2, I think this could very easily be a game that the Jets steal. And I think a lot of it will have to do with the fact that they're making that quarterback change.
Yeah, First State Jets is saying Tomlin disinformation. So are we buying that maybe this is just Mike Tomlin doing some gamesmanship? I will say something that makes me nervous in this game. I think the Jets have a chance to win, obviously, but something that I think is a big mismatch is the coaching. I think Mike Tomlin is an incredible coach. I think he gets out a lot out of these rosters. Like, I don't think the Steelers are talented enough to be a 4-2 team, but they are because they're kind of the opposite of the Jets. They find ways to win ugly where the Jets are losing tight games like this. So I do think, Tomlin deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do. But are we buying that this is some kind of gamesmanship from Mike Tomlin and Justin Fields is going to end up starting, or do you think they are actually making this switch?
I'll believe the switch when I see the switch. Honestly, I kind of agree. Maybe it is this information. I get it. Like, if he's taking all the QB1 reps, you expect him to be QB1. But at the same time, this could just be a way to drum up some competition, to intensify things in practice and push Justin Fields even harder. That could totally be the strategy here. Or it could just be they want to see what else they have. And maybe Russell Wilson takes these QB1 reps at practice. Maybe he doesn't look so great and they roll with Justin Fields anyway. So I don't think it's necessarily disinformation trying to confuse the Jets, but I don't necessarily believe that this confirms Russell Wilson is the starter. So I think it is a wait and see approach. I'll believe it, though, once Mike Tomlin officially announces it one way or another. And until then, I'll just keep playing the waiting game.
It would be kind of weird, though, I feel like, if Russ got all the first team reps and then, Fields ends up playing the game. Like, why would you want to? Like, Fields isn't the kind of quarterback where, like, he can go a week without practicing with the ones and then just come in and be fine, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there, but we're only at Thursday, so it could potentially be first half of the week was going to Russ, second half of the week was going to Fields. Maybe today, I don't know if the Steelers are practicing, or tomorrow he ends up getting the run with the ones. And then we're like, oh, okay, so they were just working Russell Wilson back in. I mean, Russell Wilson was coming back from an injury. Maybe they're just trying to ramp him up and help get him up to speed. When you're running with the twos versus running with the ones, it is a different speed and it is a different caliber of players that you're playing with and against. So maybe it's just part of helping Russell Wilson get through his recovery process. That could be the case. And then once they're preparing more so for the game time, they have Justin Fields take more of the snaps with the ones throughout the rest of the week. So again, I just think you have to take a wait and see approach here. But I also do think that for the Jets, it is a little bit difficult because this offense probably changes rather drastically depending on which quarterback it is. You either have a quarterback who has a tendency to run a lot in Justin Fields and run well and struggle in some other portions of his game. And then I feel like it's kind of the exact opposite. While, Russell Wilson, he can use his legs. He could scramble and buy time in the backfield. He's not a runner and he does some things really well that Justin Fields really struggles with. So they are kind of polar opposites in many ways as two quarterbacks. So it does make it a little bit difficult for the Jets to game plan here. But I do think at the end of the day, end all be all for the Jets, stop the run. That's the number one mission for you regardless. So your game plan shouldn't change too much depending on which quarterback is back there.
I like this. The dual comments here from Johnny Boy says, "Hi, my name is Johnny and I'm in a toxic relationship with the New York Jets. Hard agree. I was down in the dumps Monday, and then I saw a video of Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams on Pat McAfee, and I'm all the way back in. It's sick. I can't quit this team. I wish I could, but I just can't. And then follows it up with, "I'm sorry, but I think we lose against Pittsburgh." Look, when the schedule came out and before the year started, I did have this as one of the. I predicted the Jets go 11-6, and this was one of the 6 losses that I had on the schedule. Pittsburgh's a really tough place to play. And they're well coached team, like I said, and I thought that would be a big difference in this game. Why I'm changing that now and feel like the Jets have a good chance to win this game is because one, you add Davante Adams in. Two, the offense did look a lot different with Todd Downing than Nathaniel Hackett. And I'm not saying it's going to be some sort of runaway game, but I don't know. I think 17-13, like it's going to be ugly. I don't see this game being a very pretty one. But at the same time, like if Sunday night comes and at midnight the Steelers win 16-13 and TJ Watt has 45 sacks in the game, I'm also not going to be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this one going either way, and obviously we'll get into our predictions officially and scores in a little bit, but you have to acknowledge as a Jets fan, even with the improved offensive scheme seemingly and with the improved receiving core, you're going up against arguably the best defense in the NFL. I mean, that Steelers defense is tough to play against, especially in Pittsburgh. So I could see this one going either way. I think it's going to be a really difficult matchup. And I think that unless Aaron Rodgers keeps the ball clean and they run the ball effectively, it might end up being a tough day for the Jets. It's really just going to depend, in my opinion, on how well they're able to set the tone on the ground game.
Yeah, and the Steelers, I was pulling it up because that's where I wanted to go next. They've allowed the 4th fewest yards and the 2nd fewest rushing touchdowns. This is a very stout rushing D. So that's going to be hard. And they've held their opponents to 20 points or less in 5 of their 6 games. Indianapolis at 27 points was the only one who went above that. The loss to Dallas, it was a 2017 game, so it was a tight, low-scoring game. I kind of think that's where this one's going to end up playing out. And I can't give enough credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. One, their coaching, but two, the defense is going to keep them in the game. That's been their recipe. Offense hasn't been great, but their defense is good enough where it's going to keep them in most games. So there's a lot of pressure on the Jets for this one, obviously. But I do like this conspiracy theory here that says, I blame Daniel Jones for the New York Jets issues. Daniel Jones got Saleh fired.
Well, Daniel Jones is the coach killer. So one way or another, I'm sure that he had an effect here. I mean, he's had how many coaches fired at this point in his career? I don't know. Yeah, I'll blame Daniel Jones too. F it. Why not?
Yeah, toss it in. Might as well at this point. But another thing while we're on here and wrapping up our Jets segment before we get into our picks, the desperation for this game can't be understated. Like I don't think that there's any way that you come back from a 2-5 start. And your season feels pretty much officially over at that point. The Jets have an opportunity here with their next 2 games against the Steelers and against the Patriots. If you win both those games and get back to 500, obviously through the first 8 games, no one would have signed up for being happy at 4-4, but it feels like you're a little bit more alive at 4-4, where if you drop one of these next 2 games and you're sitting at best 3-5, that's, again, we talk about hills to climb out of. It would be really tough for this team to go the rest of the way and essentially have to finish 7-2 at that point to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you hate when it's a must-win game this early in the season, but I totally agree. Like, this is must-win. This is a dire situation for the Jets. I don't see how you climb out of a 2-5 hole. I think it's almost impossible to do so. I wonder if there are any stats on that, teams that started 2-5, and they're, how many of them have ended up making the postseason. I'm not sure, but I have to imagine it's not many, especially in a competitive AFC. I mean, there's a lot of heavy hitters in this conference right now. When you're looking at the top of the conference, they're really good teams. Sure, the division is still pretty open, but it's not going to remain open after a loss to the Bills this past weekend. If you also lose this weekend to Pittsburgh, you're going to have to end up winning your second matchup with the Bills for sure. And you're also going to have to just win all of your other manageable games as well in order to stay in that AFC East race, if that's where you want to try and make the playoffs. Otherwise, you're talking wild card, and it's a wild card. You literally never know which teams are going to be competing for that. So that's really difficult. I think this is an absolute must-win game back against the wall. The Jets got to go balls to the wall.
Yeah, I'm with you on it, and no disagreement there from me. I'm going to stick with what I said just a second ago. I'm going to say 17-13 Jets win, an ugly one. Where's your head at? Do you think the Jets win this game, and what kind of score are we looking at?
I don't think the Jets are going to win this game. I can't believe it until I see it, is
Fair.
kind of my thing with this Jets team. Like, the offense looked better this past weekend versus the Bills, sure, and they're definitely taking steps in the right direction, but they have done that before. Like, we thought they were turning a corner against the Patriots, and then the next week, I think it was the Broncos game, they fell flat on their face. So until they actually put it together over a couple weeks in sample size, I can't fully buy in. So I have to say, I think that the Steelers are going to win this. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's probably 17-13, but the other way around. I'll go ahead and take the same score, but just apply it to the other team.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you any pushback on that. I think your reasoning behind it is completely valid, and would not be surprised if that was the case. And I'm talking from a fan's perspective. I want this team to salvage their season. I don't want to be doing mock drafts on Halloween. Like, that's just not what I'm hoping for. But I think it's completely valid. We'll see. Sunday night, it's going to be big for the Jets. Let's get to your New York Giants, who have a divisional game and are welcoming old friend to the show back in Saquon Barkley. What are some of your feels for this game coming up against Philly?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the loss of Andrew Thomas, that feels like a season sinker in many
Yeah.
different ways. I know my co-host on Fireside Giants, Alex, has said that he thinks the season is officially over and we should start looking ahead to the draft after that loss. And I don't necessarily disagree with him. I mean, listen, the thing is, the Giants are in such an interesting position because the NFC East just isn't that good. So if they end up winning this Sunday versus the Eagles, they're very much in the NFC East and playoff race. But if they end up losing to the Eagles, which they likely will, I think it's just about season over. I don't know how you recover from the 2-5 start, as we just mentioned with the Jets. And with Andrew Thomas out of the lineup, now we're talking about a team that's going to have to trot out one of the worst graded offensive tackles in the NFL last season. Whether you're talking about Evan Neal going back to the field, or if you're talking about Josh Azidu, both of them were among the worst graded offensive tackles. And those are the options that the Giants have to put out on the field. Josh Azidu is expected to get the start on Sunday. This is my thing with Josh Azidu. The Giants drafted this kid to play guard. He was a third-round pick. He was a guard at UNC. I have no idea why they decided they were going to transition him to tackle. Every time we've seen him on the field playing tackle, it's been a nightmare. So I just don't get it. I don't understand why they're so insistent on making him a tackle. But alas, here we are. He's going to be the starting left tackle. And Evan Neal's still just waiting to get on the field, which highlights in its own way the Giants don't have any faith in their former number 7 overall pick. The whole thing here is just kind of a disaster, unfortunately. But, we'll see how it goes on Sunday. I don't think the Eagles are necessarily the cat's meow, so maybe we can sneak one out. But it's just going to be tough with your offensive line missing its best player.
Yeah, Justin's not very confident here. He says the Giants, are going to get blown out. In all honesty, I don't see the Giants winning this game. I don't think the Eagles are good enough right now to blow anybody out. I think even with the Giants' struggles and obviously coming off a frustrating one, I think this game's going to be tight. The Eagles have played tight games all year. I know that they have the Giants number. The Giants unfortunately have lost to them a lot over the last few recent years. But in my opinion, the Eagles have shown me absolutely nothing to make me believe that they are going to blow some teams out. And then First State Jet says, and this is kind of what I'm hoping for, I hope you win and get Sirianni fired. He's a terrible coach, and he brings all the same solid features, not prepared, underwhelming, lame positivity quotes, but with the addition of being a jerk. I'll go one step further and say asshole.
Listen, I've said this before. I like to make this joke. I think Nick Sirianni is a disgrace to my heritage. The fact that he is the most prominent Italian American coach in the NFL right now, at least the loudest and the most obvious about it, is just embarrassing. He reflects poorly upon other Italian Americans. I hate that guy. I think he's the most annoying person in the league right now. I would love to punch him in the face, and I don't often choose violence in my life, but with him, I just might choose violence. And I hope that he does get fired. And I hope that the Giants end up blowing out the Eagles one way or another and he gets fired as a result. That would just be fantastic. But at the same time, I think this Eagles team is always going to be a pretender and lose a lot of games, not actually be a true Super Bowl contender as long as Nick Sirianni is the head coach. So maybe I don't want him fired. Maybe I want them to live in mediocrity for a long time because of him. That's also an option.
Ian sends in a super chat. Appreciate you, Ian. He says, Can we pay Calvin Banks to come out mid-year? He'd probably be an upgrade to what the Giants have on that offensive line.
He would be at left tackle, but I will say it opens up this can of worms, right? Because at right tackle, you have Jermaine Illuminor, who's been excellent. And while I wish the Giants had more depth and more talent, actually, last night on Giants Collective, new show that I'm on, Adriana mentioned David Bakhtiari, who we mentioned a lot for the Jets in the offseason. He's still out there. She said the Giants should just, accept the L and go out there and sign somebody. And Bakhtiari stands as an obvious solution. And it's like, I kind of get that perspective because the Giants are 2-4 and somehow in the playoff race in the NFC East. So if they could have somebody appear out of nowhere and play in the starting lineup, Kevin Banks would be fantastic. Bakhtiari could be that option, right? You could see something like that happening and helping this Giants offensive line maintain its continuity by plugging in a left tackle. But I just don't know if the Giants believe in this offensive line like that. I don't know or if they believe in this offense to win these games regardless of who they plug in. And I think a lot of that has to do with the conversation surrounding the quarterback. So I think you're going to keep Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. If the Giants were really serious about fixing the left tackle spot, they'd probably flip him to the other side of the line. But the fact that they want to keep him at right tackle tells me they want to try and develop Azidu, see if they could squeeze any juice out of there and just see what they have in this roster. And that kind of indicates to me that maybe they don't fully believe in their chances to get back in this playoff race. I don't know. So it's just going to be a little bit of a difficult situation, but it's a next man up mentality. Who knows? Maybe Joe Shane ends up getting a lot more favor with this fan base because either Neil or Azidu steps into the lineup and they end up surprising everybody and actually playing good football.
Yeah, I was surprised as well that they're not moving Illuminor over. I think I said it at the time. He was one of my favorite free agent options at tackle, and I thought it was a very wise signing by the Giants, and he's been good so far at right tackle. And I get not wanting to flip someone over on the other side of the offensive line. Like that's so much easier said than done. It is kind of like doing everything opposite, like doing everything with your offhand, switching sides to the line. But Giants are kind of desperate, and the Eagles with all their flaws, they still at times could get a good pass rush going. And I have no faith in Evan Neal. Obviously, a third round pick who's drafted to play guard, playing or starting at left tackle is also a little bit concerning. Maybe we'll see the Giants add someone at some point here, but this week is obviously out the door. When's the Giants bye? Is it coming up or is that later in the year?
It's week 9, I think, or 10. Okay. They got to get through Eagles, Steelers, Panthers, then the bye. So okay. What week is that? 10, I think.
Yeah, so maybe around that time, like if you start bringing someone in now, like Bakhtiari hasn't had a training camp. Like he's going to need a few weeks to ramp up if you actually wanted to use him. Or pretty much any one of these guys you sign off the street.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably an upgrade if he's healthy. I don't know. I never know with him. So, and also it's week 11. I just double checked. Okay. We have the Commanders mixed in there as well. That's really interesting that we play the Commanders in week 9, then the Panthers, then the bye. So it's a pretty tough schedule for the New York Giants. And if you're talking about maybe bringing somebody in, waiting until week 11, at that point, what is the point, in my opinion? That's pretty far down the road. And you have a lot of games here that you're probably going to drop a few. I mean, if you lose to the Eagles and the Steelers and then you're facing the Commanders, so you win against the Panthers most likely, and then in week 11 during the bye you sign somebody, what's the point? Like your season's pretty much toast then. At that point, F it, just plug Evan Neal in at left tackle and see if there's any juice left to squeeze out of that lemon.
How about Justin Pugh? What's he up to these days?
Justin Pugh is a content creator now. He's very dedicated to his craft. He posts a lot of content. He's really trying to make it as a big-time YouTuber. I don't think he wants to get off the couch and play any more football, to be honest.
I can't say that I blame him. He had a nice 11-year career in the NFL and was put in a very tough spot off the couch to left tackle last year, and it didn't go great. So yeah, I don't see them pulling that card again.
Yeah, he didn't really play well. Honestly, I don't think he was in football shape when he signed off the couch to play, and he's definitely not in football shape right now. He absolutely looks, and he did last year, like he lost a lot of weight and was getting prepared for retirement life. I think that's totally where he is right now. I don't think he's ruled out a return, but if you've seen any of his content that he's made, these YouTube videos, guy does not look like he has the weight of an NFL offensive
No.
tackle anymore. He's dropped a lot of pounds and he just looks ready to live his life. And I don't blame him. Once you reach year 10 in the NFL, you get those retirement benefits and healthcare packages and all that crap. He's got it. There's really no reason for him to keep playing in the NFL. He also is a real estate investor. So just a pew. That era is over. I don't think he's going to be playing with the New York Giants. And I think more realistically, if the Giants are going to have a reunion on the offensive line, it's going to be with Tyree Phillips, who they've called up from their practice squad several times in the last few years. I don't know where he is right now. He's on somebody's PS, and I don't know if he's fully healthy. But if he is, I could see him getting called over to the Giants and maybe contributing some snaps.
Is our guy Malik Neighbors going to play in this game? What's the vibe with him at practice this week?
I think so. He's recovering and he's progressing through the protocol. He ramped up yesterday. I think obviously they have one or two more practices before Sunday's game. So he's just got, I think, one more stage of protocol to clear. And it sounds like he's heading that way. I think he is going to be cleared by Sunday. If not for sure, he should be back by next weekend. But I think he'll play in this one, and I think he is going to be the X factor. I mean, he is the engine of this offense, and this is an Eagles secondary that I'm not very impressed by. I don't think they have a ton of talent there. I think that Neighbors has a chance to really pop in this one, especially at home on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel Jones doesn't play well at night. He also doesn't play well at home, but at least on Sunday afternoons, he plays a little bit better. So maybe we do get a big performance out of Malik Neighbors if he's healthy to play.
Yeah, I want to see him back in the lineup. Obviously, I think he's an immense talent, and he's a really big part of this Giants offense. A target hog when he's been out there, and deservedly so. I think it's worked and worked well. And for this Giants team, that's kind of what this year is all about. You're seeing who your future building block guys are as you're in a bit of a transition. And for all of Daniel Jones's deficiencies, I think he's done a good job of getting Malik Neighbors involved early and often. And like, this team is better and more fun with him. So I'm hoping he plays. And as a Malik Neighbors fantasy owner myself, I want to put him back in my lineup. I'm coming off back-to-back losses here. No good.
Yeah, I am really struggling in fantasy this year. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I bring it up every single episode. My 20-man dynasty league. I think I have to stop bringing it up because it's
No, I love it.
it's not going well. We might be looking towards a rebuilding year. Might have to make a couple trades. The injury to Neighbors and Rashee Rice, those two really killed me. So, but listen, man, if Neighbors gets back in the lineup, it's going to be huge for the Giants because I don't think that 20 targets damn near to Wan'Dale Robinson is anywhere close to sustainable. The problem with Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a really good player. Love him near the line of scrimmage and creating yards after the catch. He's like an impossible target to hit downfield. He's tiny. His catch radius is probably, I think he has the short, like historically short arms for a wide receiver. So if that ball isn't pinpoint accurate, which it never is with Daniel Jones, let's face it, when we're throwing downfield, you just can't hit this guy downfield. Like, he's so difficult to get the ball to past 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So I think Robinson is a great player. He's just very limited due to his stature. So having a player like Malik Neighbors, who looks like he was built in a lab to play wide receiver, it helps. He can get the ball. You could throw it up to him. You could throw it down to him. Wherever you want to get the ball to him, he'll get it and he'll make a play out of it. So, it's just going to be transformative to have Neighbors in the offense. And we haven't seen the combo of Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy just yet. And I'm excited for that if we get it on Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely think that is something to look forward to. And you've been high on Tyrone Tracy the last couple of weeks. I definitely think it's something to continue to watch and see if he's, a future RB1 for your team.
I think that he is. There's a lot of Giants fans who want him to be RB1 right now. And I mentioned him because I want him to be. Kind of like really think that he's a great player and has a lot of potential. But, I think Devin Singletary is going to play this weekend, and he's probably going to get the bulk of the reps. And we'll see how that goes. I'm a little curious to see if he steps back into the lineup and looks like he did in weeks 1 and 2 and looks really good. Maybe he does. But then again, just are you leaving meat on the bone at that point? Like, are you leaving more talent on the table for you in Tyrone Tracy? I fear that you might be. So I really do hope that Tyrone Tracy continues to get a high workload.
Ian's back with another super chat. Ant's dynasty team is like the Giants, 2025, baby. Looking forward to the next season, it looks like.
So this is the thing with that dynasty team. I scored more points than anybody in that league last season, and I ended up losing in the playoffs. Just bad luck. I think I had somebody who just had a stinker of a game, and my opponent had somebody who doesn't usually perform at a high level and boomed out of nowhere. So it was just one of those bad luck postseason runs. Finished the season with more points than anybody. If you look at my team on paper compared to everybody else in the league, it's the best. But now I've got a lot of injuries, so it's no longer the best. And then also I have the Dynasty Nerds thing, if you guys know what that is, and I plug my team in, it says that I have the number one contending team and the number one dynasty team in that league because it is just by far the best in the league. But somehow I'm 2-4 and I'm falling in my division. I don't know what's going on. I'm really just going to chalk it up to bad luck and injuries and a bad regression from Dak Prescott, I think, is what's ultimately going to sink me this season.
It's tough. Sometimes, you go into a year with high expectations and you fall flat. Look at my team that's 2-4 right now. It happens, but keep the faith. You just got to rattle off a few wins, get yourself back to 500, and then you're back in business.
Well, here's the thing. My opponent this week doesn't have a quarterback because it's a 20-man league. So if you don't have a starting quarterback who's healthy, you don't have a quarterback, right? Most teams don't have a backup that's going to start. I'm lucky I have Dak and I have Stafford, but a lot of teams have one quarterback on their roster, and then their backup is an actual NFL backup, so they're not going to play. My opponent, his quarterback injured. I don't remember who it is, but he's not starting this week. I think it's Anthony Richardson. So he doesn't have a quarterback. If I lose to this team that's not playing a quarterback, it's done. I'm blowing it up, and I'm going for the rebuild.
the full rebuild. I love it. Well, you got to keep our guy Will McDonald here, at least.
Yeah, I'll keep him. And I actually just picked up in the free agency pool. What's his name? Jermaine Sherwood.
Oh, Jamie and Sherwood. Okay.
Jamie Sherwood. Yeah, I picked him up, and I thought that was like, I couldn't believe that he was available because, again, the rosters are it's impossible to find talent in the free agency in this league. But I think that was a steal for me.
It is. He's going to play a lot. I mean, Mosley only played 9 snaps this past game in his first game back and still doesn't look healthy. And it very well could be his last year with the Jets. So I like that Jamie and Sherwood pickup. I'm high on that. All right, let's do our predictions. We gotta do our score predictions as we're coming down to the close. Are the Giants winning against the Philadelphia Eagles?
25-20. New York Giants win.
Let's go. That's the vibe that I am talking about.
Malik Neighbors returns, puts up 150 yards. Nick Sirianni makes some terrible coaching mistake. Jalen Hurts throws a pick. If you actually look at Jalen Hurts' career stats against the Giants, they're terrible. I honestly almost never pick the Giants to beat a team like the Eagles just because we always lose to them. But this time around, it feels a little different. Giants team desperately needs a win. I think on a Sunday afternoon with Neighbors back in the lineup, I don't know. I don't believe in the Eagles. I think that the Giants are going to find a way to pull it off somehow.
I pick. So I'm in a league where I pick against the spread every week, every game against the spread. I'm in 2 actually. I might have a problem, but I picked the Giants to cover at +3. But going into this show, I didn't know where I was going to land on it, and you talked me into it. I'm going to pick the Giants outright in this one also. I'm not going to go as high scoring as you. I'm going to say 21-20, a 1-point win at home, and Nick Sirianni gets shit canned on Monday. And we celebrate on Monday with a Giants and Jets victory Monday and Nick Sirianni getting fired. It might be our best Big Apple Blitz episode yet.
Man, I would love that. Expectations and reality often completely different, but who knows? Maybe our dreams will come true this weekend, and hopefully we do see Sirianni get the can.
I hope so. That might be the only guy that all 32 fan bases can't stand. Like even the Eagles fans are done with him.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Love it. So, all right, Jets in action on Sunday Night Football. Giants Sunday 1:00 game. No prime time, so Daniel Jones might have a chance this week. That's the take. Is this the? I think you just answered it, but I'm going to ask it again. Is this the week that Daniel Jones ends the streak of no touchdown passes at home.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't necessarily think it's because he's going to throw some absolute beautiful dime. I just think Malik Neighbors is going to be back in the lineup, pissed off, hungry, get the ball in his hands, refuse to go down and find a way into the end zone.
I love it. Guys, that's going to do it for us on this one. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Anthony, you can find him on Fireside Giants, his new show, Giants Collective, right? That's what it is, Giants Collective, and all his stuff there. Me, Matt O'Leary, NY, talking Jets, covering all things Jets. That'll do it. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.